You had bounced around with various entertainers, probably yourself, and I suspect otherwise is similar. It just never has cut much mustard with her. It just it's like when you were talking about your groupie. When we were doing entertainment work, people would. It was astonishing to me because people would do anything to be close to that, to that environment, and it was just the darndest thing. We owned a company with a major entertainment group who will remain nameless right now because they're still around. And, I'd read all this stuff, and we were the two owners of the company. One of them had won some Academy Awards and stuff. And, until I spent a year working there, Gary, I'd never believed the stories about what people would do just to try and be associated with that business. But after a year of it, one day, well, I guess a short vignette, I'll keep it. We were on like the fourth floor, right on Wilshire and Rodeo in LA, which is a kind of a prestigious location. And I had to go down to a meeting, and there were two elevators, and one of them was full of cleaning equipment, and the other one wouldn't work. And I went to the receptionist and I said, call maintenance, the elevator won't work. I didn't want to go down 5 stories, whatever it was, in my suit. This is Southern California, it's about 110 in the shade. And she got really upset. And I said, what's the matter with you? And she went on to tell me that one of the producers would stop the elevator mid-floor to interview ingeniees, these young actresses.
Uh-huh.
And I went home at night and I sat down with Gloria and I said, the old saying about lying down with dogs and getting up with fleas. I'm really not a moralist, but I just found it unsavory. It's not something I wanted to be around and part of. So I never renewed my contract there, to the astonishment of a lot of my friends. And like I say, I really, honest, I really don't care what people do. Everybody's lives are their own and their morals are their own, but I did find that I was really uncomfortable being around that. It's just not something that I found neat or cool, like some people do. So I guess I'm Midwestern and straight-laced in the end, Gary, but that's why I didn't pursue that line of work.
Well, even like in broadcasting, I found that the same way, a lot of times, because at one point I was pretty highly rated, in my career, what I was doing.
Yep.
And I looked at everybody and, I didn't feel comfortable. I enjoy doing what I do, but I didn't like what I saw out there, in the industry and how cutthroat they were and what, all the things you had to do. And it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah, it really, and a lot of people who lust after or desire being a part of the world, whether it's broadcasting, entertainment, whatever, really don't get that. I don't mean that badly, but it just, and then you get in the middle of it and some people like you and I, and some others I know, find the trade-offs are not worth it. The interesting thing about it, I found the best entertainers that I found to work with were really the country western people. These were folks who came up, through the honky-tonks and really understood that their fans were everything, and there was a lot of, let's say, reverence for the family and things that you really didn't find in some of the other trades. And the biggest thing I noticed primarily about the young musicians, is that unless they had a strong core, usually a family core, value core, you get a young musician or an entertainer, and suddenly people are just throwing money at them, literally throwing money at them, and people will do anything they want them to do. It takes a strong moral core to resist that. But some entertainers did. Ben Vereen was one. Tom Hanks is another. Neil Diamond, who was part of the roster there, and some others. Just never were. They had such a strong core of their own. They were never affected by that.
Well, my dad served in World War II and then Korea. And while he was waiting to be sent back home from Korea, he met, James, I can't even think of his last name, but it turned out to be James Gardner. And my dad and him became lifelong friends. And when I was a kid, this guy would come up and spend a week or two every summer, and my dad and him would take off and do, what guys do, I guess. And, when I got a little older, I recognized, hey, that's the guy that played in Maverick. And then, all of a sudden I realized, hey, this is the guy that does Rockford Files and all this stuff. And I got to know him pretty good. And, and I hate to say it, this guy was down to earth like you wouldn't believe. And not any, being conceited or nothing,
Yep. Oh, they're out there. And I think the reason the image is that there are so few out there is just because the ones who are notorious.
Uh-oh, we lost him again. Well, let's get him back here for the last 5 minutes. Okay, sorry about that, people. Now,
well,
we're on a roll here tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what's going on with the phone cutting out, but like I say, I think most people in the business, like any other business, are really pretty decent, good folks. It's just the notorious ones that we hear about all the time.
Oh yeah, and like James Garner was a real nice guy, because I remember my mom, because my dad had a heart attack at one point, and they thought he was going to die when I was a kid, and he was in the hospital for months. And then, for some reason, my mom, for a long period of time, wouldn't cook beef. So it was either chicken every night, or it was meatloaf made with clam. Okay,
clam.
Well,
that's a new one on me. I've heard that before.
They lived in Seattle, but we had relatives. They used to live on Whidbey Island, so they'd bring up a whole bunch of clams. They'd freeze it, and it was the most disgusting thing in the world to try to eat, like a meatloaf. Anyway, I remember James Gardner, sitting at our table eating, and in this expression, eating that stuff. So, anybody else probably would have got off and said, hey, I'm not going to eat this crap.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, the worst thing in the world, because of that, I won't eat seafood. I had to live that way for a couple of years, eating clams all the time, eating fish, and all this to the point, I just look at the stuff and I run.
Yeah, I think too much. One of my uncles would never eat fish because my grandfather during the Depression had to poach. And they lived on a lake and he poached fish. Even then there were limits, and they ate fish. Well, my uncles told me to save the family. I mean, it was really hard times. And so Granddad built a fish house with a false wall and would have his kids go down there, and they'd throw a few fish out that were the right size and were shy of the limit. So when the game warden, who chased my grandfather for years, would come by, he couldn't argue they couldn't keep fishing, and he'd look through the fish house and there were no fish because they all stuck them in the wall and they'd freeze.
Uh-huh.
So and my uncle told me later that after those years, there were like 2 or 3 years where they pretty much lived on fish. He could never eat it again. He just couldn't stand to smell it or eat it. So I can understand that if you clam meatloaf is a new one on me, but I can see why you don't want to eat that anymore.
I can tell you, it looked as bad. as it sounds. I can tell you that.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I remember, because I was quite young when that was going on. I remember, like figuring out how I could get rid of it without getting caught, like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom and have my mouth full of stuff. And then, it was just the most disgusting thing. And I hate to say it. Oh, God bless my mom.
You needed a dog, so you could just slip it to
No, we had, my mom had two poodles. My mom and dad had two poodles. They wouldn't even eat it.
Yeah.
I tried that. They'd sniff and walk away.
If the dogs won't eat it, that's a serious problem.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. It was those was it razor clams that look like penises?
Yeah, those are the ones.
Yeah, disgusting.
And they're white and kind of covered with goo.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Jeez, Gary. Yikes.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah. Weirdest tasting meatloaf you could ever have. Well, hey, our time is up. I know it's not what we were going to originally talk about, but we managed to talk over 2 hours of everything.
Yeah. Well, I think we haven't settled most of the world's problems, but at least thank you for the hearing for my book. I appreciate it very much, Gary.
Yeah, and it's called Tales from the Day. Again, you can find it from Amazon and where else?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and great online stores everywhere, I'm told. Okay. But I know Amazon and B&N for sure.
Well, you need to go out there, guys, and get a copy of this. I guarantee it's not what we talked about. So if you're expecting what we talked about, that isn't going to be it. But I would go out and grab yourself Tales of the Day by Wayne D. McFarland and read it. Is it a good weekend read?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the stories are all they're all fairly short, and when it's interesting, we talk about times changing, that when I originally turned in the manuscript, a number of agents and others looked at it and just told me that, short vignette type stories, particularly, I tell people they're true. Some people don't believe it, but just were non-starters. And I told them, I said, well, look, this is a short story world we live in now. We're a 156-character world. And as it turns out, that's what's happening, is people like to get the book because they can sit down and read a complete vignette story in a few pages and just spend a few minutes on it and come back to it and then pick up a whole new story. And they don't have to try and remember where they were before. They're all standalones, 19 of them. So that's pretty much the book itself, and we're real pleased with it. And I appreciate the hearing.
Yeah. I had
much.
One author, it was on my show a long time ago. He sent me a copy of his book, 817 pages. And then it's a good book, but, he was wondering why it wasn't selling. To be honest with you, he probably should have broke the book up into 2 books or something.
Yeah.
Because,
well, what I'm going to do, Gary, did I send you a printer's galley of the book? I can send that to you electronically and just blast it off. Did I send you that?
Yeah, please do.
I will. I thought I'd done that. My apologies. I will get that out to you. You'll have it first thing in the morning.
Okay, sir. Well, I'm going to let you go. Hey, I just enjoyed just BSing with you for the last 2 hours.
It was great fun. An unexpected pleasure, I have to say. Thank you so much, and appreciate the plugs. And I got your website now, so I'm going to become a faithful listener.
Okay, please do.
I will, Gary.
Watch out for those grays coming out from underneath your bed at night.
I will do that.
You take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night. So anyway, bye. It was a little bit different than I thought it would be, but we just sat and had a 2-hour conversation like he was in my living room, which makes it kind of fun. And it's unique, and it wasn't paranormal for a change. And, I love the paranormal. We talk about it every night of the week, but it was kind of nice to take a little break. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. We'll be back tomorrow, and we got a good show tomorrow. Of course, I always say that, but tomorrow we're going to be talking to Nick Tice, and we're going to be talking about trucker stories, like UFOs, strange things, cryptics and all this stuff you see out while you're out driving long hauling of a truck. So that's tomorrow. Then later on in the week, we have Wayne Wilson talking about his movie on Bigfoot that he's making.